Hello everyone and welcome back to Our Silver Moments. I'm really happy that you could stop by today. If you're new here, my name is Colleen. And today I am going to work on a meatloaf. Not just any meatloaf, but a jalapeno popper meatloaf. So if that sounds interesting to you, then I will come right back after I've gathered up all the ingredients and we'll get started on this, what turns out to be a really simple recipe. I'll be back right after this. Okay, I think I'm all set. And I've tried to put everything kind of in an orderly fashion. The very first thing I'm going to work on here is the jalapenos. Maybe I'll move this bowl out of the way. And the reason that I'm going to do that is because I saw this great tip from Catherine's Plates. And she actually blanches or par cooks the jalapenos so that they're, because they can be quite stiff even after the meat is cooked, they would still be somewhat uncooked. So she blanches them ahead of time, and I thought, what a great idea. So I'm going to do that. And if you haven't watched any episodes of Catherine's Plates, you should go have a look because she does a really good job, and I think that we're kind of similar in the way that we present things. And she always does it with a joyful spirit, and I appreciate that a lot. Okay. So the jalapenos, if you enjoy jalapenos, then you could add a third one. Some of us in the household do, but my husband doesn't care for the spice. So we're going to do a little trick so that we can tell what part of the jalapeno, of the meatloaf has jalapeno in it and what doesn't. That's just for our own sake here. So I think I have to be mindful I'm not using gloves. And I'm just going to cut these down the middle to start with. And I'm going to remove all the seeds and membrane. I need maybe a little garbage bag here. Throw the onions in. And I'm just going to go into it and cut that all away. Because we still want the flavor of the jalapeno, but not necessarily the heat. Although I think our two girls in this house would be happy to have the heat. It seems like they can both tolerate it. I can tolerate a little heat, but my husband cannot stand the heat. So we will make a dish that we can all enjoy. Okay. Now, get the last of the seeds out of there. Do the same with this one. And then we'll get these cut up and into the pot. I have a pot on the stove. I've got the water set to boil. It looks like it's not far off based on the amount of steam that's coming out of the pot right now. In fact, I think I can hear it starting to roll. And we are going to let these bits cook about 10 minutes at a rolling boil. And I am going to, pardon me, I'm going to do as Catherine did, and I'm going to cut them in long strips to start with. And then I will cut them down to go into the dish rather than leaving them in strips. One of them we're going to leave in a strip. That's going to be our guide to where it's hot and where it's not. And there's so many ways you could work this jalapeno popper meatloaf. Now one of them is you could just dice up the jalapenos and you could put them right into your meat mixture. We're going to stuff this. It's going to be a stuffed popper, just as if you were getting a jalapeno popper on its own. And And we're going to stuff it with cream cheese and cheddar and wrap it all in bacon. So there's our jalapenos in slices. I'm just going to put these in the pot on the stove. There we go. Now before I forget and rub anything that shouldn't be rubbed, I'm going to set this aside. And I'm going to wash my hands. Okay. Now I'm going to give this board a quick wash because I'm not done with it yet. Now I've also set my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit because that's the temperature we're going to need to cook our meatloaf at. Grab this bowl. I'm going to cut up this onion. But while I'm standing here looking at my board and my meat, I just wanted to say I had a viewer brought something to my attention that I hadn't really given any thought to at all. But, and I don't promise to be better at it in the future. I'll do my best, but, you know, sometimes we forget when we've done things through repetition for so many years. We don't think about the simple things like, in this case, putting a towel underneath the cutting board so it doesn't rattle so much. People do remind me of that, and I forget because I just have not done it consistently enough to make it a habit. But this viewer was saying that she noticed, she wasn't trying to be critical, and I didn't take it to be critical, but she just noticed that I, along with a lot of other cooks, probably at home, where the camera isn't on you, and other cooks who have shows, tend to pick up the packages of meat and put them right down on the cutting board. And we don't know how many hands have handled this package of meat before it came to us, or how it was treated, or what it might have been placed on or anything, and then we're putting that right on our cutting board, and then we're going to use our cutting board after that. So, makes complete sense, but it's just not something I've thought about before. So today, I am going to think about that. I'm not going to open that right away though. Let me get this onion done up first. So we want a medium onion, and you can write this recipe down if you want as we go along, or you can just wait to the end, and I will put the recipe in the description box below the video. You will find the description box by going down to the bottom right hand corner of the video itself. You'll see a word there that says more, and if you hit more, it opens up the description box, and then you can see all the recipes that I put there and any other information I think you need to make the recipe successful, or links to some of my other videos where that I mention in the video as I'm making it. Now, we didn't have a lot of meatloaf growing up. In fact, I really don't remember Mom cooking meatloaf very much. We had a lot of wild meat because my dad was a big game guy, and so we had mostly wild meat. If we had beef or mutton or lamb, we were probably at Grandma's house because they had a farm where they had those things readily available, and we didn't. Dad raised pigs, so we had lots of pork. We ate a lot of fish, and we ate a lot of wild meat because one of the benefits of being a big game guide in the time my dad was, our dad was guiding, was that he guided mostly American hunters, and they came to Canada for the trophies, the big sheep, the goats, the big elk, deer, bears sometimes. So that meant that, I'm going to try not to touch this, that meant that they usually went home without the meat because they had no way to keep it to get it back to where they lived. And some of them came from quite southern states in the United States. And so they would leave the meat behind. And in those days, we could either donate it to the hospital or we could share it with friends. Today there's all kinds of rules about what you can and can't do with the meat that you hunt. It's supposed to be for your personal use. But that wasn't the case then. So the hunters went home with their trophies and we benefited greatly. Although not always greatly. I'm just going to wash my hands again. One of the ways when I was saying that we didn't benefit greatly, what I meant by that was that often the meat that we were getting was from really mature animals, and the meat in those animals just got tougher and tougher as the animal got older. So we did have to find a lot of ways to fix meat that you know, you could figure out how to soften. So there was a lot of stews and soups and things like that, because that was the way that Mom could soften up the meat for our family to eat. A lot of hand washing today. Now, let me look at what I've got going on here. So, I have 2 pounds of ground beef. That package was 1.05 kilograms, so around 2.25 pounds. And I didn't need quite that much, so I took some out. I've got it in here, and we'll make it into a hamburger steak for breakfast tomorrow morning. And also into this bowl goes all the things you would suspect from a meatloaf. I'm going to put in, and I will empty this. I'm going to put in well, maybe it won't quite empty it. About a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. It'll help to give it some of that smoky, deep flavor. I'm going to add about the same amount, about a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. And I think garlic goes well with something like this. I'm going to grab a teaspoon because I don't want to overdo the amount of salt that's going in here. I just want a teaspoon, which should be more than enough. And then I want a teaspoon also of pepper, just black pepper. Pepper just hits the notes that the jalapenos don't hit. I know I've said it before, but I think it's a really underestimated spice. Okay, we're going to need some breadcrumbs, a cup. And these are plain breadcrumbs. You could definitely use flavored ones if you want, but I'm trying to keep it kind of clean so that the popper part sticks out and not Italian seasoned poppers. That would be okay, just different. I also need a couple of eggs, and I'm going to break those eggs into a measuring cup so that I can give them a whisk. And whoops, now I'll pick some eggshells out because, man, did I ever dump a bunch in there. I bet you everybody's done that. I don't feel like I'm alone there. Okay, I've got them retrieved. I'm just going to give them a good whisk up, just so that it mixes better. Because one of the things that I find with meatloaf is if we handle the meat a lot, it tends to get quite, how do I put this, dense. And we'd like it to be a little more fluffy than that. And I also need a half a cup of milk, and wouldn't you know, we've broken the handle off of the other half cup measure. So I'm going to order some new measuring cups for our kitchen. Now let's hope there's a half a cup left in here. If not, I'll just top it with water. And there wasn't. So let's top that up. And in it goes. And this should really help to keep the meatloaf nice and moist. And I'm going to set that aside. Now this is kind of a fun meatloaf to put together. So I'm just going to move a couple of things out of the way that I'm not going to need right away. There's this. Give myself a little space to work in. And I'm going to grab my loaf pan. And I've just put my loaf pan on an old sheet tray with a piece of tin foil in there because my bread pan that I'm going to use isn't quite as big as a meatloaf pan. So I know that there's a very good chance this will bubble over in the oven because this is 5 1/4 inches wide by 9 3/4 inches long by 2 3/4 inches high. And you really should have like a 4-inch high one. So I will do the best I can. Hopefully I can get all of the meat as per the recipe into that pan. But if I can't, then I'm going to save what's left over and we'll make another hamburger patty and it can go for a hamburger steak for breakfast in the morning. Okay, now I'm going to go in. I prefer to use my hands, but if you need to glove up, then you do that. And I'm just going to mix it until it's well mixed together, but I'm not trying to compact it in the mixing process. I've got quite a bit of onion in this. I probably could have gotten away with a little less onion, but here it is. It's in the meatloaf, so that's where it's going to stay. Now, I'm going to set that aside just for a few minutes, and it's going to let the milk and water mixture and the eggs be absorbed by the breadcrumbs, and that will help it keep it from being dry. I'm going to wash my hands, and I'm going to cut some cheese. Now we need a couple of cheeses for this recipe. You can use, any kind of melty cheese, but here I've got a marble. It's what the girls picked up when they went to the grocery store. And it will work just fine for this. We don't need an awful lot because I think this is going to end up being quite rich as it is. So what did I do with, I know what I did with the paring knife. I used it for the jalapenos. So let's take about that much Cracker Barrel cheese. Probably didn't need to mention the brand. I'm just going to grate this. This will definitely give me what I need. Probably a 1/2 cup really is all you need. And I'll have a look in a minute because I feel like I'm probably there. And then some probably. Get rid of that. And then we also need cream cheese, which if you've had a jalapeno popper, you know that the inside of the popper has cream cheese in it. Or at least the ones we make have cream cheese in the center. So I'm going to open up this brick. Now it's up to you how much of it you use. I never use the full brick, even though I've seen recipes that do. And I'm just going to cut off, about, I don't know, somewhere between 1/4 and 1/2 inch slices, because we're going to run this down the middle of the meatloaf. So it's just as if we're using the meat to hold in all the cheese and everything else. And I think that's about 1/4 of a cup left, which is just exactly what I need to make a batch of cinnamon rolls. So I might do that with the rest of it. Okay, I'm going to have my cheeses ready. And I am going to bring my pan over here. I'm going to grab my spray. Ooh, Not much spray left in there. You probably don't have to spray it because the meat will have quite a bit of fat in it anyway. I'm using a lean ground meat, but if you're using regular ground, you will definitely not need to spray the pan. I am going to make, or put half of this, approximately half, into this pan. And I don't know if you can see, but as I go around the pan, I'm going to build up the, pardon me, I think the pepper's getting to me, folks. I'm going to build up the outside, because the inside is where all the goodness is going to go. I'm going to shut off, reach over to the stove, and shut off the jalapenos. And I'm going to take a little more, because I want it to go right up the edges, because we're making like a sealed pouch inside so that we don't lose all of our cheeses out of it. Okay, can you see the depression in the middle there? That looks perfect. Now, we're back to the hand washing again. It's been a lot today. I'm going to have occupational dermatitis. Okay, with clean hands, I'm going to take these slices of cheese, this cream cheese, and I'm going to run them right down the middle of the pan, like so. Now, that looks pretty good. And then I am going to add some cheddar cheese in there, about a half a cup. More isn't terrible, but you don't want to get it along the edges because we want this to seal properly. Okay. Now, last, I'll set this aside. The last thing to go into the center, of course, is the jalapenos, which I have to. So you see what we've done so far? I'm going to grab the cutting board back that I used to cut the onion, and I'm going to drain the jalapeno. I'm just going to take a piece of kitchen towel. I've got my back to you, I'm sorry. I'm going to drain this pot out. And I'm going to dry it a bit. It sure changes color when you do that. It almost looks like a lime green. So I'm going to drain this a bit because it will suck up a lot of water. Now, I'm going to take one piece and set it aside. And the rest of this I'm going to dice up into a fairly small dice. And you can see it's very well cooked. I cooked it in 10 minutes completely. Okay. Now, I'm going to take this and I'm going to scatter it all around here. Now, I guess it really wouldn't matter the order that you put these things in the pan. Whether you could put the jalapeno in first and then the cheeses, or the way I'm doing it here. Oh dear, now I've done it. Part of this has to have no jalapeno on it. Just going to back it up off of here and get it all off of there, I hope. There we go. And then, without moving the pan, I'm going to take this and I'm going to lay it right down here so I have a marker point. I'm going to wash my hands. And then I'm going to add meat to the top. I'm going to pack it on there pretty good. And when I have reached that spot, I'm not patting it down or anything like that. And now this exact spot out here where the jalapeno is going to go, I'm going to put right there. And we'll know that anything on this side, obviously, has jalapeno underneath it. Okay, now let's get the rest of this going. We will cover the meat underneath, right to the edges so that we're not losing a thing here. I'm going to pat it down a little. I know you're not surprised, but I'm going to wash my hands again. So the last part of this, before it goes into the oven, is I am going to add bacon to the top of this. Now, many jalapeno poppers, when they're made, are wrapped in bacon, and that's why we're going to add the bacon to this one. You could, if you had enough bacon, make it into a weave that you lay down on your cutting board, and then form your meat on top of it to make the loaf, and then you would be able to cover the entire thing in bacon. But if you did that, you would definitely use quite a lot more bacon, and you would have to bake it on a sheet tray like this over a rack, because the bacon would not get, it would be soggy underneath. It wouldn't get crispy. So this way the bacon on top will get crispy. Now I could have added, and I got it out, and maybe I'll go back and do that now, because I was blabbing and not paying attention. I'm going to add a little bit of ketchup to the top of this. And again, my hands are dirty. And then we're just going to add this for flavor on the top. It makes it more meatloafy, I think, if you've got a bit of, it's just tomato ketchup. Nothing fancy there. Back we go. Get our blanket on. And we're going to get this ready to go into the preheated 350-degree oven. And it's going to bake 60 to 70 minutes. I'm going to put this one on there. I'm going to give it a little push over. Now they fit so well the first time, and now they don't want to go. Okay. There we go, folks. That's what it looks like. Now, it's going to go into the oven, and I will come back with it when it's done, and so that you can see what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. I'll be back before you know it. Oh my gosh, this smells so good, and I know how much we're going to enjoy it. There you go. That's what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. Now I see a lot of juice around the outside, and so I am not going to make any attempt at this point to cut into this. I'm going to give it at least 15 minutes or maybe 20 minutes to set up really well first. And can you hear the laughing in the background? That's my nieces. I love to hear their laughter. Because I don't have a fancy meatloaf pan where you could lift the meatloaf up out of there, I'm going to have to cut it in the pan, and we're going to have to scoop it out onto the plate that way, which I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat. I don't have room for a meatloaf pan, so I use a bread pan. Anyway, I'll be back in a little bit to show you what it looks like when I get it onto a plate, and I will see you soon. Oh my, I'm not exactly sure how to do this, so I'm going to try the two flippers. I've let this cool in the pan for 20 minutes, and maybe I'll turn this one this way. I feel like this is not going to come out nice and clean for me, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Oh, there you go. Now, of course, I'm going to make this visible for you. I want to clean it up. Okay, can see this now. This is the cream cheese layer inside, and this is still very juicy and tender, which is just the way you want it to be. It did fall apart a little, but overall, I think this is a complete success, and I hope that you'll think so too. So if you're tired of just plain old meatloaf, why not give this one a try? It is simple. Most of the ingredients you would have on hand, or you could certainly plan for easily and within budget. And this is just a really different twist on an old classic. And I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, folks, please give it a like, share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, and remember to hit the little bell, because then you're notified every time a new video goes up. I hope that you have enjoyed the week, and I will see you again really soon on the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.